What is up, everybody? As you know, DJI just dropped their new Mavic Air 2, and this thing is pretty darn cool.
It's so cool!
For $799, you get 4K 60 recording, you get 48 megapixel photos, and you also get HDR video. Insane. But a spec sheet, although important, can be misleading. The best camera is the one you got
and can't afford!
So we are gonna do a shootout between the two heavyweights of the DJI Mavic line. The Mavic Air 2 versus the Mavic 2 Pro. All right, so first let's see how these drones compare on paper, and then we'll take them into the field, put them through some real world tests, then take it all back to the computer and see what we think. The DJI Mavic 2 Pro. For $1,500, you get 4K 24 and 2.7K 60. You get 100 megabytes per second bitrate, you get D-Log, 10-bit color, you can shoot 20 megapixel images, and you can also shoot both RAW and JPEG. You also get a flight time of 31 minutes. The Mavic Air 2. For $799, you get 4K up to 60 frames per second. The bitrate for video is 120 megabytes per second. You get 48 megapixel photos. You get a max flight time of 34 minutes. You can shoot both RAW and JPEG, and you also have HDR video. Another thing to note is
they're slightly different sizes. In my hand, this one probably weighs a pound more. Don't quote me on that. What DJI says is that it's 40% heavier. So if you're on a long trip or something, that might weigh in. All right, it's my first time flying this thing. Wish me luck. All right, so right now we have the Mavic 2 Pro in the air. Again, I mean, these are the drones spec-wise that they kind of go head to head. So let's see which one looks better. All right, so I realized that recreating my drone path was pretty hard, and unless you were using something that's like automatic with one of their cool shooting modes, it's actually hard to replicate the same motion. So right now, I'm just gonna do a static right above the car of this big rock. I'll do a photo and a video, and this should be a more exact test. I feel pretty good about that one. All right, so this is my official test, my official scientific. I'm gonna put both drones right here, and I'm gonna shoot that, and we'll just do like a direct, no flight comparison, and we'll get some pixel peeping in. So the Mavic 2 Pro has two video settings for your focal length. There's the FOV version, and then there's the version that's punched in a little bit. So we're gonna test both and then we'll do the Air 2. All right, so here's 4K 24 punched in a little bit. We'll set the EV comp to -3. So we're just gonna roll on that. Cool. All right, now we're gonna go to 4K FOV, which is a little wider. Roll on that. I'm so hot. I think my shaved head is getting burnt to a crisp today. Okay, now we'll switch to photo mode. All right, and we'll do one JPEG and one RAW. There's JPEG. Now we'll do a RAW. There's RAW. And cool, let's do the Air 2. All right, so as you know, this is the Air 2. I hope you guys can hear me with the wind, or else I'm gonna have to like do voiceover or something. Okay, and on the Air 2, there is no FOV option or punched in option. You just kind of get the wide angle lens. All right, here's 48 megapixel, and I'm gonna shoot a JPEG and RAW at the same time. You just change that in the menus. So there's a JPEG and a RAW photo. All right, I'm gonna sit. My knees are hurting too bad. Oh. This is much better. All right, so there are those photos. All right, now I'm gonna switch to, actually, now I'm gonna do just a single shot at the lower megapixel so we can compare the 48 megapixel photo versus the non. Oh, my knees. Nice little butt shot right there. Oh, just the old calibration compass on the rock.
All right, so it has been a couple days since shooting, and I've been diving into the edit, and after 4 days or so, I have some opinions. First, let's run through my experience shooting with both drones, specifically shooting video. Simply put, you can get insane, cinematic, beautiful footage with both drones, but at the end of the day, the Mavic 2 Pro is gonna give you more manual control over your image. The first reason is the adjustable aperture. This has some implications with photo as well, but in filmmaking, you wanna shoot double your frame rate, so being able to adjust that aperture and not crank your shutter to like 1/5000 is super nice. Between the ability to adjust your aperture as well as an ND filter, you can pretty much always guarantee you are gonna get the exact shutter speed that you want. On the Mavic Air 2, it is locked at a 2.8, which it's nice that it's at a 2.8 because that is pretty shallow, but again, it's locked and you can't change it. The next thing to be aware of is that the Mavic 2 Pro is gonna have more color profiles. So on the Air 2, you are only gonna get D-Cine-like and normal. Now, I will say I actually think the normal profile on the Air 2 is a huge improvement from the Mavic 2 Pro. I would never shoot the normal color profile on the 2 Pro just because it was way too saturated and contrasty for my taste. The Air 2 normal looks a ton better, but you only get those two options with the Air 2, where on the Mavic 2 Pro you get D-Log and other profiles so you can get the exact colors that you want. Next, the Mavic 2 Pro allows you to shoot 10-bit while the Air 2 is only 8-bit. You can put a heavier color grade on 10-bit footage, while if you were to do that same grade on 8-bit footage, it would start to fall apart. Another thing that I noticed on the Air 2 is when I put it in a quick shot, so I stood on this rock and had it orbit me, even though I had my settings at 4K 24, when I did the quick shot, it immediately put my settings at 1080/30, which Just drives me crazy because one, I wanted it to be a good test because I was like, oh, what a great opportunity to test the Mavic 2 Pro versus the Air 2 here. But I wasn't able to because it put it in 30 frames per second at 1080 while the Mavic 2 Pro stayed in the settings that I originally had it at. And then all of a sudden when your footage is at 1080 30, which I'd never shoot that frame rate, it's just a little, I don't know, it's just annoying. Back to the video quality, I don't think you're gonna notice the extra 20 megabytes per second on the Air 2, but the Air 2 still has amazing video capabilities because that is a great bitrate. Any other drone under $1,000 is not gonna have that high of a bitrate, so the fact that they packed 120 megabytes per second in the Air 2 is awesome. So if you're a filmmaker watching this video, you need to kind of weigh your needs and which one you think you'll need the most, because the Air 2 does have 4K 60 and 1080 240, so if you're shooting a lot of action, you might want to go with the Air 2, but if you don't find yourself shooting a lot of slow-mo on your drone, then the Mavic 2 Pro is going to have a couple more manual controls that allow you to get the exact image that you want. Okay, so when it comes to photos, and if you're a photographer watching this, the Mavic Air 2 certainly has the upper hand. The Mavic 2 Pro takes great photos. It has 20 megapixel stills. You can shoot both RAW and JPEG, and it has auto exposure bracketing and all that stuff. But the Air 2 has 48 megapixel stills, which is actually insane. When I pulled the Air 2 RAW files shot at 48 megapixels onto the computer, the file was almost 100 megabytes. That is a photo that you can do so much with. You can print that photo to be massive, and you can also do a ton of cool stuff with cropping. So yeah, you have that fixed focal length, but because of that 48 megapixel still, you can crop in and still get a high-res image. Something else that I want to talk about is the difference in sensor size. The Mavic 2 Pro has an inch sensor while the Air 2 just has a half-inch sensor. This is gonna make a big difference with noise in your image, and it's also gonna be most notable when shooting in low light. So here's a quick example. We shot the Air 2 and the 2 Pro both at 1600 ISO during the day, and you can see that the Air 2 image just looks a lot mushier, while the 2 Pro seems a little sharper and seems to be the better image that you could actually use in an edit or in a film. Okay, so the big question now is which drone is for you, which drone should you buy, which drone is better? If you don't have a drone, I would say go with the Mavic Air 2. It's a little smaller, it's compact, you get amazing photos, you get insane video, and it's half the price of the Mavic 2 Pro. If you have a Spark or the original Air or the original Mavic, I would also recommend getting the Air 2. It's a huge upgrade, you're gonna love what you can do with this drone compared to those older drones. Now, if you already have a Mavic 2 Pro or you have a Mavic 2 Zoom, I would recommend holding on to those drones. They're both great. They can do a ton. The Mavic 2 Pro is amazing for video. It's pretty darn good for photos. The only reason you would change is because you wanted 4K 60 or 1080 240. So if you shoot a lot of action, I can see you switching over to the Air 2. But if not, then I would just wait for them to come out with the next version of the Pro series, because I'm sure that's gonna be insane. I don't have any specs on that or know anything. I just assume that DJI will make that drone pretty cool. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this long video, and hopefully this kind of gave you some insight into how good the Air 2 actually is for that $799 price point. Leave a comment below, like, subscribe, all that stuff, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.